Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. This is Story Dive back again, breaking down another episode of American Gods, this time Season 2, Episode 3, titled Muninn, which is the name of one of Odin's ravens who features prominently in the episode, and also the name means memory, which also features as a theme in the episode as well. Just to give a general review of this episode, I really enjoyed it. I liked it more than last episode. There was a lot going on in this episode, and a lot of narrative threads being woven that make me really question what's going to happen with the series. And as someone who has read the novel, I'm really not sure where the series is going because this episode especially diverges from the novel in some pretty dramatic ways. There was definitely more intrigue in this episode, more questions, more mystery, which makes me want to see the rest of the series even more. So now that my quick review of the episode is out of the way, I'm going to go over the episode, point out all the Easter eggs and references I noticed, and just add in my commentary on the story and the characters. Just a warning, if you haven't seen the episode yet, I will be getting into spoilers during this part of the video. The episode begins with this image of flames, and if you notice, the flames kind of take the shape of a horse, which is definitely Odin's steed, his war horse, Sleipnir, which we saw released from his car, Betty, in the last episode as soon as the train hit it. And then we see the wreck of the train that hit Odin's car in the last episode. In my last breakdown, I said that the car broke down, which was a mistake on my part. Odin clearly put it there on purpose, and I suspected the train might be the train that Shadow was on, and it turns out it was. After a quick image of Shadow on the Mountain of Skulls, which is an image we saw in the last season, we see Wednesday and Mad Sweeney among the wreckage of the train. Laura is in pieces again, and Wednesday makes a very cruel but funny reference to her being Humpty Dumpty.
Did we sit on a wall? Did we have a great fall?
And from the way that Mad Sweeney is reacting to Wednesday, it seems like he was not surprised by this turn of events. He was probably in on this as part of Wednesday's plan. Wednesday and Mad Sweeney pick up Laura's pieces and pack her in the trunk of Betty, who I guess is now reincarnated as a new car. When it was sacrificed, it invoked the spirit of Sleipnir and reincarnated, and now it seems completely fine, even though it just stopped that train. The three of them head to Cairo, Illinois, leaving Shadow behind, which I guess means that him finding his own way to Cairo, Illinois is part of his journey and necessary for him to discover himself. Shadow stumbles from the wreckage, and as he stops, we see that he's being monitored by Muninn, who then in the next scene reports Shadow's progress back to Wednesday. And in this scene, we can see they're back in Cairo, Illinois, at Ibis and Jaquel's funeral parlor, and Ibis is once again patching up Laura, fixing her up. Sweeney tries to convince Laura to go to New Orleans, where they will meet Baron Samedi, and she will be resurrected, at least that's what he says. But Wednesday convinces her to go with him to find the Greek giant with many eyes, Argos. He says that Argos can recharge her coin, revitalize her, so she decides to go with Wednesday rather than Sweeney. When Ibis hears about Argus, he mistakes him for Argus the dog, the faithful dog of Odysseus in Homer's Odyssey.
That old dog?
No, not Odysseus's mutt. The man with all the eyes, Argus Panoptes.
And then we cut to the scene in this roadside store where Shadow tries to basically scam this lady, and he is called out by Sam Blackcrow, who is a character in the novel, pretty similar to the character they're showing us in the series so far, and I really like the portrayal of her by the actress Devery Jacobs. I think she's doing a great job as the character. Sam Blackcrow ends up taking Shadow with her to Cairo, Illinois, and I love the part where he calls it Cairo, which is the Egyptian pronunciation, and she says,
It's Cairo.
Cairo?
With my first American Gods video, I got a lot of people getting mad at me. It's pronounced Cairo. To all those people, listen to Sam Blackcrow. It's Cairo in Illinois. Mr. Ibis tells the story of the goddess Hera, Zeus, and Argus, and he's telling it to his cat, which I'm pretty sure is the Egyptian goddess Bast in her animal form. The story is basically Hera, the goddess of marriage and women, and also Zeus's wife, is unhappy with his infidelity, so she turns one of Zeus's lovers, Io, into a cow and has Argos watch over the cow so Zeus can't be unfaithful. But in response, Zeus sends Hermes, who kills Argus, and then in turn Hera has Argus reborn in America as the god of surveillance. The All-Seeing One in Greek mythology now essentially becomes a new god in America, the All-Seeing Eyes of Surveillance. This story is an actual story in Greek mythology, although it's slightly different. Of course, they add the ending here of Argus being reborn, which to me is a very interesting part of this episode. It illustrates something that we saw with Mr. Wood in the previous season, that this battle between the new gods and the old gods isn't so cut and dry. Some of these new gods may be adaptations of old gods, and old gods may adapt into something else, a different form than they once had, as is the case with Argus. Mr. Ibis says that the many eyes of Argus eventually faded and only his memories remained intact. And then we see a shot of this drone monitoring Shadow, and the drone has the logo Argus on it. And actually, we saw the logo for Argus in the last episode on the jumbo screen. It may have been in a few other places as well, but now we know that this logo, Argus, is a private surveillance company controlled by literally Argus, the All-Seeing One. In the first episode, when Mr. World said, "I need to see through the eyes of Argus," I thought it just meant the bunker could see everywhere like Argus, and that's true, but when he said the eyes of Argus, he literally meant the eyes of Argus. The drone that was monitoring Shadow gets taken out by one of Mr. Wednesday's ravens, probably Muninn. Mr. World and Tech Boy have a bit of a confrontation due to the drone that was taken out. Mr. World tells Tech Boy to get your man in line, referring to Argus. And an interesting line that Mr. World says here is,
"We build the new world on top of the ruins of the old."
Which again is referring to this theme of adapting the old into the new. Soon after, we meet the new version of Media, who has evolved. She has now become New Media, played by Kyun Kim, and she seems to be a much more young, updated version of Media. Her fashion seems to have a sort of Japanese pop culture Harajuku vibe. As you can see, her collar is a cat, kind of like Hello Kitty, and she makes reference to all these new types of media, Twitter, social media, etc. So that is what she has now evolved to become. Then we go to Wednesday and Laura, who show up at the Argus facility. And like Mr. Ibis said, only memories of what Argus has seen remain, and they go into one of his memories. And in this memory, we see that Argus, in his original form, has died. He's probably been killed by Hermes. And Wednesday says, change requires sacrifice, and sacrifices this cow, which, for the vegans out there, this is probably a pretty hard scene to watch. But once he does so, she turns into a woman, that woman being Io, Zeus's lover, who was disguised as the cow. Wednesday removes some sort of a ceremonial knife, wooden dagger, from Argus. I'm not sure what that is specifically. Possibly this is a variation of Hermes' staff, the caduceus, which is sometimes referred to as a wand. Because Hermes killed Argus, it's possible he left it at the scene of the crime. But regardless, I think it's an instrument that has the power to kill gods. Then we go to Mad Sweeney, who, now that he is separated from Laura, his bad luck has come back. When he's not around Laura, and he's away from the coin in her stomach, his bad luck returns. The Jinn and Salim go to the Corn Palace. I thought this would be the famous concert venue in South Dakota, but they totally misdirected me here. It's actually a danky strip club, and if you see the sign doesn't even say Corn Palace, it says Porn Palace. But the P is dead in some places, so it looks like a C. The Jinn and Salim go in, and they are greeted by this big guy here. And in the credits of the episode, this actor, Stephen R. Hart, is listed as Gnaskinian. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he's a evil spirit in Lakota mythology, sometimes called the Crazy Buffalo. And he's a malevolent spirit who wreaks havoc on love affairs, causing feuds, murders, and suicides. He also seems to be blind, which I'm not sure is a reference to the mythology because I can't find many sources for this particular Lakota spirit. As Shadow and Sam Blackcrow drive toward Cairo, Shadow looks around and sees images in her car of roadside attractions, so perhaps she's drawn to the power that Wednesday alluded to in the first episode of Season 2, and then she makes reference to the Crow Nation warrior, finds them and kills them, who is an actual person, historical figure, called Osh-Tish. Definitely mispronouncing that. And the interesting thing about Osh-Tish is she was considered a two-spirit, which is a traditional Native American third gender that has an important ceremonial role as well as other roles. And after making this reference, Sam Blackcrow says that she is a two-spirit.
Like me. Two-spirited.
Which might be in part because of her mixed parentage, which she makes reference to later. Her father was a full-blooded Cherokee, and she says her mother was a devout Christian, I'm assuming white, and so those two different influences create a sort of dichotomy in her and make her a two-spirit. Shadow notices an interesting tattoo on her arm, which is a buffalo head, a bison head, with two birds around it, which could be a reference to the buffalo in Season 1, and then also the birds could be a reference to Hugin and Muninn. But considering what Sam Blackcrow says about her two spirits, it's probably that. We go back to Wednesday and Laura in the Argus complex, and they are in another memory of Argus, this time in the Library of Alexandria in ancient Egypt. It's a very famous library known for containing all the greatest knowledge at the time, and then afterwards being burned down. Mr. Wednesday makes reference to Julius Caesar doing this. The library is widely thought to have burned down, but some scholars now believe that it actually just declined over time. But Julius Caesar did burn down at least part of it during his civil war in 48 BC. And in these scenes, Laura seems to be trying to resist Wednesday's will and outsmart him, but she's up against literally a god of wisdom, so ultimately she just ends up doing what he wants and burns the library down. Back at the Corn Palace, the Jinn and Salim meet Iktomi, spider trickster spirit from Lakota myth, and we see that Iktomi is making a pretty good living not only as a strip club owner, but also a grower of marijuana. And by the way, in the last breakdown, I said that they were going to South Dakota because that's where the Corn Palace is, the concert venue, but it appears this strip club is in North Dakota because you can see on Iktomi's hat that it says Williston Speedway, which is a city in North Dakota. Iktomi offers Salim and the Jinn a drink or a smoke, and the Jinn turns it down, knowing that as a trickster, he is going to attempt to pull some sort of trick on them, perhaps to get Salim as a sacrifice. Iktomi gives Salim Gungnir and also a little plant which he has grown to the Jinn, and the significance of this plant, if I had to guess, is that it might grow into a representation of Yggdrasil, the Norse world tree. In the last video, I also made reference to the fact that in the novel, the god that the natives in North Dakota believe is Iktomi is actually Whiskey Jack. But seeing this character in the show, it seems like they're not going in that direction for the series. If we do see Whiskey Jack, he'll probably be a completely separate character. Salim and the Jinn are driving away. You can see in the cracks in the pavement the words "Somewhere in America," which is a recurring segment in the book, and based on the trailer for Season 2, I believe we'll see it a few times in the series. Then after a brief exchange between Sam Blackcrow and Shadow, we go to Tech Boy and New Media, who are going to see Argos. And New Media makes reference to the fact that the two of them are kind of redundant.
It is kind of weird that he sent us both, though, isn't it? I mean, we're basically redundant.
Because she represents technology like Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, although he's more the god that makes it possible, whereas she is the god that uses it to reach people. More hilarious bad luck with Matt Sweeney. This time it seems like he's caught a break. This bus doesn't hit him and it actually stops, but then when he gets inside, he realizes he is in the tour van of a Christian rock band, which is probably the worst luck that he's gotten so far. Tech Boy and New Media, as well as Laura and Wednesday, reach Argus at pretty much the same time. He is in this room where he's connected to all these cables, fiber optics, And although he's clearly blind, he seems to be the engine that is powering this global surveillance. And we get this, let's say, interesting scene where new media fuses with Argos, meaning that she can see everything he sees, and probably vice versa. Wednesday convinces Laura to take Argus out, and Tech Boy sees it about to happen, but he actually doesn't do anything to stop it because he seems to not like new media and Argus combining, because that would make them more powerful. So he lets Laura stab Argus with this ceremonial dagger or whatever it is in this neck tattoo, and the tattoo seems to be the same logo, the same eye logo that the Argus surveillance company has, but I'm not sure what the significance is of stabbing him in the neck. And afterwards, as Wednesday said, Laura is rejuvenated. She seems to look alive again, but she's very distressed because her mission was to find Shadow. Mr. Wednesday has pointed out that she's no longer the same person that Shadow married. At this point, she doesn't know what to do because she's not the same, Shadow is not the same. Perhaps finding Shadow is no longer her mission, and I have to wonder what her mission will be now. Shadow and Sam Blackcrow travel toward Cairo, and soon after they arrive at Ibis and Jekyll's funeral parlor. The two statues in front of the funeral parlor are Ibis and Jekyll, the Egyptian gods Thoth and Anubis. And when Shadow gets out of the car, these lights flicker around him. Sam asks,
"Friends of yours?"
I'm not sure if they're fireflies. The lights remind me a bit of Will-o'-the-Wisps in European mythology, or Hitodamas in Japanese mythology. In any case, I think they might be wandering, floating spirits. In the final moments of the episode, Shadow sees Wednesday.
This is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Shadow wants answers, but Wednesday won't give him any answers. He just says that tomorrow you'll wake up and feel like $1 million, and if you don't, you can take Betty. And that's the end of the episode. This episode is definitely intriguing because there's a bunch of stuff that isn't in the books, and it all seems to be getting very complex and very interesting. For those of us that have read the novel, I don't think we really know where it's going to go because they've changed so much already, but at the same time, I love it because I like to keep guessing. I like that they're surprising me. But what did you think of this episode? Was this your favorite episode of the series so far? Where do you think the characters are now heading based on what happened in this episode? Did I miss an Easter egg, or did I get one of the Easter eggs wrong? If so, please let me know in the comments below. For me, this was a very strong episode, and I can't wait for the next episode, which I hope you'll come back and join me for. If you liked this video, please hit like. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and check out these other videos about American Gods. Until next time.